What's up everyone? My name is Ashley Wylde and welcome to my channel. I am here to tell you that you might think you are polyamorous, but you are not. Okay, obviously some of you are polyamorous. Like, this is not like a sweeping generalization. I'm not trying to put a blanket over the entire universe and say everyone's not polyamorous. Polyamory doesn't exist. It's not what's happening here. I am telling you, you might be someone who thinks you are in a polyamorous relationship and you aren't. I'm gonna start by reading a couple different definitions of polyamory because there are subtle distinctions, and I think having multiple definition gives a broader perspective of what we're actually talking about here. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines polyamory as the state or practice of having more than one open romantic relationship at a time. Dictionary.com says the practice or condition of participating simultaneously in more than one serious romantic or sexual relationship with the knowledge and consent of all partners. And Urban Dictionary says the practice, state, or ability of having more than one sexual loving relationship at the same time with the full knowledge and consent of all partners involved. There's some massive key points here. Polyamory involves open relationships. It potentially involves multiple partners. It necessitates open communication, honesty, and informed consent from all parties involved, and that is the bullet point that I'm hinging this video on. I make the argument that for informed consent to be achieved at all, the communication between two people needs to be completely devoid of any and all emotional manipulation, coercion, and deception of any kind. There are too many negative examples right now of negative relationships that are being portrayed as polyamorous. These poly relationships usually include someone who, to one degree or another, is emotionally manipulating their partners into a situation or an agreement that they really have no interest in. In polyamorous relationships, partners need to be willing to communicate openly. They need to take each other's insecurities and fears seriously. They need to be gentle and validate another person's feelings, jealousy, compersion, whatever those feelings might be. In a polyamorous relationship, your partner should be aware of your concerns. They should be open to your perspectives, and they should be sensitive to your insecurities. That doesn't mean that they're never gonna do something that doesn't press on an insecurity, but it does mean that they need to treat you with gentleness and kindness around your sensitive spots. If your partner doesn't listen to your worries, your fears, your uncertainties, your insecurities, if your partner doesn't reassure you, if your partner doesn't validate your feelings and tell you that it is okay to feel how you feel, you are not in a polyamorous relationship. Because the opposite, not having any idea how you feel about something, not validating your bad feelings, not showing up for you when you're having a hard time, those are signs of a really deeply unhealthy relationship, and it's not polyamory. Polyamory requires commitment. So if your partner is using polyamory as an excuse to shirk commitment, your relationship is not polyamorous. Polyamory requires arguably more commitment than monogamy depending on the situation, because you are committed to multiple people. You're committed to being there. You're committed to caring for them, committed to validating their experience, to processing with them when they're having a hard time. Polyamory is not an excuse to cheat. If somebody cheats on you and they tell you it's because of polyamory, your relationship is not polyamorous. Just because your partner might be polyamorous doesn't excuse the betrayal, doesn't excuse the cheating, doesn't mean your relationship had agreements in place that would allow that person to act on their polyamory. And if that's not the case, your relationship is not polyamorous. If your concerns or your protests go unheard, unaddressed, unanswered by your partner, your consent cannot possibly be informed. If you bring up an issue and your partner or partners refuses to address or acknowledge what you have said or brought up, you cannot consent to the relationship because your consent is no longer informed. If you say, I am worried that you are doing things that are outside of the agreements of our relationship, and I feel worried that you're not telling me, and your partner doesn't address your concern, doesn't tell you, doesn't open up a dialogue about the ways you guys can build trust or how you can communicate better, your consent is not informed. In a time where more and more people know about polyamory, they know the word polyamorous, there's a certain type of person, a certain type of emotional predator who is taking that experience and using it for their own benefit. They're using language like, I identify as polyamorous, and you need to honor my identity if you want to be a respectable partner. Relationships are about compromise. They are about sharing. They are about building. They are about growth. If someone is telling you that you have to be willing to be polyamorous in order to be a good person, that's not polyamory, that's emotional manipulation. You always have the choice to not be in that relationship. It may be true that you need to honor someone's polyamorous identity to date them, but you don't have to be willing to be polyamorous to be a good person. You can love someone with whom you shouldn't have a relationship. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try polyamory if you have a polyamorous partner and you feel like you might be monogamous. I'm not saying that at all. There are relationships that successfully include both polyamorous and monogamous people. What I'm saying instead is that your feelings for another person can be manipulated, and that if someone is telling you that they're polyamorous, but they are not treating you with respect, dignity, extensive communication, a care for your feelings and your concerns, and if you don't feel like your consent is entirely informed, then you're not in a polyamorous relationship. You're just in a toxic relationship. I hope that you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.